In a perfect world, news media's sole interest would be seeking out and reporting the truth, with no corrupting influences seeking to drag journalists away from that goal. On the flip side, there would be no risk to a journalist's livelihood or safety posed by the pursuit of that goal. Unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. Journalism is a job, and news media is a business. This doesn't mean that there aren't any good journalists or news media organizations out there, but there aren't any perfect ones, and we owe it to ourselves to think critically, not only about what they're saying, but why they're saying it. In an age where clicks on a website are more valuable than newspaper subscriptions, outrage journalism is running rampant. Media companies have discovered that an emotionally triggering headline is the best way to get someone to engage with an article, both through reading it themselves and through sharing it on social media. Engagement leads to clicks, clicks lead to ad revenue, and the rest is history. This is happening everywhere, and video game news media is no exception. Of course, generating outrage where there's something legitimate to be outraged at is not a bad thing. In fact, it's a very good thing. Outrage can inspire us to take action against injustice and make society better. The problem arises when generating outrage becomes the goal at the expense of journalistic integrity and ethics, when context is ignored, when relevant details that don't fit the narrative are left out, when journalists don't do their homework and allow their reporting to become agenda-driven rather than truth-driven. These are failures that are becoming all too common as struggling news outlets fight to stay relevant. Over the past couple of months, and especially since the start of E3 2019, gaming news media seems to have it out for Cyberpunk 2077, and in the course of covering the game has produced examples of every single one of these breaches of journalistic integrity. You've probably seen these articles from sites like Kotaku, Polygon, Rock Paper Shotgun, PC Gamer, and many others, covered and critiqued by YouTubers, including ourselves. I'm not going to go through all of the details here, but suffice it to say that all of these articles are designed, at least in part, to create outrage, and it's worked. It's resulted in unfounded accusations of transphobia and racism against CD Projekt. And when I say unfounded, what I mean is its subjective interpretation with no proof of intent, while at the same time ignoring any evidence to the contrary. Many of these accusations have come from people who don't even understand what cyberpunk is or who created it, and therefore have no context for correctly interpreting the things that are being criticized. Good journalism would attempt to provide this context, but it's noticeably lacking in a lot of the coverage. For example, some of these articles have brought up concerns about how certain groups, specifically black people, are being represented in the game, which is fine to be concerned about, but they leave out some very relevant information. For example, the fact that Mike Pondsmith, the creator of the Cyberpunk IP, is himself black, and that he's been heavily involved in the creation of this game at every step, and that he's got good explanations and reasoning for why things are the way they are, why certain people are concentrated in certain areas, what's going on. There is massive lore explaining the social and political dynamics of this world, plus it's a dystopian future with a horribly problematic society. You get where I'm going with this. Even if you ultimately come to the conclusion that the criticisms are valid and that this is offensive, you need all of this contextual information to be able to come to any kind of accurate conclusion in the first place. This kind of surface-only coverage has also sparked expressions of bigotry against Poland and Polish people, including some you can read in comments on this very YouTube channel. And if you're wondering what on earth Poland has to do with this, that's where CD Projekt is located, and the government is rather conservative, so therefore, Polish people bad for some reason? I don't really get it, but no matter. I'm sure these self-appointed moral gatekeepers of the internet wouldn't be making sweeping generalizations about an entire people group without good reason, right? The backlash has gotten so bad that Mike Pondsmith, who as I mentioned is the creator of the Cyberpunk IP, has spoken out online, boldly defending CD Projekt and the country of Poland against the smears, and also demanding that people stop telling him what he should and shouldn't be offended by, or whether or not his own creation is being done right. Let's pause here for a second and ask, why is Pondsmith even in this position? Why is gaming media putting so much heat on CD Projekt, which has a reputation for being a great RPG developer and also being one of the more consumer-friendly companies in the business? There are some issues from the past that are getting drummed up seemingly as justification for the current scrutiny that the company is under. But these issues basically amount to a couple of social media faux pas and some concerns about management and crunch during the development of The Witcher 3. Does this really justify the sustained scrutiny that the company seems to be under in 2019? Is CD Projekt the only company that's had to deal with crunch or that's had an employee make a misfire on social media? This is especially puzzling when you consider that Cyberpunk itself is a world where you can modify yourself any way you like, you can be anything you like, and it takes place in a dystopia that warns of the dangers of unchecked capitalism. All things that modern mainstream media is usually on board with. Is Cyberpunk 2077 just an easy target because of its popularity, or is there some other reason? It's impossible to say for sure, we can't read minds, and we're not going to assume motives. However, we do have some interesting facts to show you. Some curious connections that we, in conjunction with the Madqueen of the Madqueen Show, have dug up from public records and information sources. There's no secret under-the-table knowledge here. We'll provide links in the description that you can use to verify every piece of this for yourself. We believe that these connections constitute conflicts of interest that could potentially, intentionally or unintentionally, motivate undue negative press towards CD Projekt at 3 major gaming news outlets: Kotaku, Polygon, and the entirety of the Gamer Network, which operates a number of sites including Eurogamer, VG247, GamesIndustry.biz, and Rock Paper Shotgun. We'll lay out the facts for you, and then let you come to your own conclusions about what's really going on. Cyberpunk 2077 is being developed by CD Projekt Red, the development arm of the game publisher CD Projekt. CD Projekt also owns GOG.com, a digital storefront for video games on PC. It's hard to get exact numbers on these things, but suffice it to say that GOG is far from overtaking the unquestioned leader in this arena, Steam. However, GOG is the favorite of some gamers because it releases many games DRM-free, and because of CD Projekt's general consumer-friendly reputation. In late 2018, GOG and Steam got some aggressive new competition, the Epic Games Store. Backed by the huge financial success of their 2017 game Fortnite, Epic Games has been expanding its presence in the PC market by locking down exclusivity deals for many new titles, including highly anticipated games like Borderlands 3 and Metro Exodus. For 6 months to a year after launch, the Epic Games Store is the only place you can buy these games for PC. This has led to animosity among some gamers who feel like Epic is trying to take the market by brute force rather than offering a competitive product. This is amplified by the fact that the Epic Games Store offers very little in terms of appealing features, not even a shopping cart if you're trying to buy multiple items. Anyway, this positions Epic as a direct competitor to GOG. It's no secret that GOG hasn't been performing terribly well lately, but they have a couple things on the horizon that could boost their numbers. One is GOG Galaxy 2.0, an ambitious project that aims to be a universal launcher and community tool that ties together friend lists and other features from all major gaming networks, including Steam, Origin, Uplay, and even PlayStation and Xbox. It's hard to say how well this will do, but at E3 2019 it was revealed that Microsoft was an official partner in the endeavor, which means that GOG Galaxy could have some real clout behind it. The other big thing that GOG has in its corner is, of course, CD Projekt's next game, Cyberpunk 2077. In addition to providing an overall financial boost to CDPR through game sales, this game could directly benefit GOG thanks to sales motivated by customer and fan loyalty. As I've pointed out, GOG has a generally positive reputation among gamers, while Epic has a relatively poor one. Gamer animosity toward Epic, and to some extent Steam, will likely cause many players to purchase Cyberpunk 2077 on GOG, especially if they know that buying through GOG results in 100% of their money going to the people who created the game. It's obvious why this would be appealing to fans of the studio. Many members of our own audience have expressed that they intend to buy the game on GOG for these and a handful of other reasons. And while this is largely anecdotal, there is precedent for it. In June of 2015, it was reported that CDPR's previous game, The Witcher 3, had sold more units through GOG than through Steam. In other words, Cyberpunk 2077 and CD Projekt are a threat to Epic Games. Yes, Epic will be selling the game as well, but frankly, it would be silly not to, and I don't think it's lost on Epic that they're selling a competitor's product. But what does this have to do with the news sites I mentioned earlier? Well, each one can be connected to Epic Games through financial interests. That's right, you heard me correctly. There are 3 separate channels through which we have followed the money and discovered connections between gaming media companies and the Epic Games Store. Now let me reiterate here, that we are not accusing anyone of doing anything nefarious, unethical, or illegal. We're not here to say who knows about these connections and who doesn't, but they are connections that we figured you should know about as you consume the information that these sites put out. We'll start with the simplest connection and move on from there. Ted Leonsis is a founder and executive board member of Axiomatic, which, if you're an esports fan, you might recognize as the company that owns Team Liquid. In October of 2018, Axiomatic invested in Epic Games as part of a $1.25 billion round of funding. As it turns out, Ted Leonsis, an executive at Axiomatic, is also invested in Vox Media, which owns Polygon. Next, we have Gamer Network, which operates a number of gaming sites, as I mentioned, including GamesIndustry.biz, Eurogamer, and Rock Paper Shotgun. In 2018, Gamer Network was purchased by ReedPop, a division of Reed Exhibitions. ReedPop also runs Star Wars Celebration in partnership with Lucasfilm. In fact, you can find links to Star Wars Celebration in the footers of several Gamer Network sites. You're probably aware that Star Wars and Lucasfilm are owned by Disney, but what you might not know is that Disney invested in Epic Games in 2017 as part of its Disney Accelerator program. So Disney is a major partner of both Gamer Network and Epic Games. And wait a minute, that same year they also invested in Axiomatic? The same Axiomatic founded by Ted Leonsis, the guy with the connection to Polygon? Now isn't that interesting? On to the final thread. Myriad Advertising is a firm that delivers, in their own words, emotionally intelligent advertising powered by AI. Ignoring for the moment how cyberpunkishly dystopian that sounds on its own, in July of 2018 it was reported that Myriad signed a contract with Chinese conglomerate Tencent to bring in-video advertising to Tencent's platform. Tencent, it should be noted, is the largest gaming company in the world, one of the largest technology companies in the world, and was at one time the most valuable company in Asia. Tencent is also heavily invested in Epic Games, having bought 40% of the company in 2012 for an investment of $330 million. This deal also allowed Tencent to appoint 2 representatives to Epic's board of directors. In other words, this deal is no small potatoes. Meanwhile, Myriad also has a deal in place with Univision Communications, which until April 2019 owned Kotaku as part of the Gizmodo Media Group. Now wait a minute, I hear some of you saying, Univision no longer owns Kotaku? That breaks your connection. I suppose you could argue that if you assume that all of the influence, personal connections, and additional business deals are suddenly gone as of this 2-month-old deal. But that seems unlikely. Financial investments and direct ownership happen to be one of the easiest connections to track down and prove, but there's more going on that isn't immediately obvious, and that's really what this is all about. None of this proves that Epic or any of its stakeholders are deliberately trying to sabotage Cyberpunk 2077. What it proves is that these media companies don't exist in a vacuum. There's more going on beneath the surface, investments and ownerships and relationships and trails of money that weave back and forth like a spider's web. This should lead us to ask questions. Questions like, what's really driving these news websites to say the things they say, to aim their criticisms in a particular direction? Are they really motivated by a desire to report the truth? Or is there something else at play? At least, in our opinion, we should be asking these questions. We're not here to tell you what to think. We're just hoping that this inspires you to think. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, sub, and hit that notification bell, and then check out some of these other videos. Find the link to our Discord server and other important stuff in the description below.